The rising sign is the most important placement in your birth chart. Why? Because it literally sets up the configuration of what your chart is even supposed to look like. Now, this is just in technical terms. Now, if we're talking about the actual astrology, like how it actually describes you, the definition of the rising sign is the very minute, the very second that your soul entered your body. And the way that we calculate it as astrologers is just the sign that was on the horizon at the very second that you were born. This is why it's so important to have an accurate birth time before you get a birth chart reading, because if your birth time is wrong, then your whole entire reading is wrong. So definitely make sure you go figure out exactly what your rising sign is and then come back to this video. So basically, the rising sign represents you, the self, the body, your soul, what you look like, how you act. I mostly look at it as like your behavior and kind of like the lens through which you see the world and almost like your projection of yourself. It's kind of like your self-assigned identity. The rising sign is also known as the first house. Now, you guys are Leo rising, so you have Leo in the first house. So Leo is a fixed fire sign. Basically, the fixed signs are not a huge fan of change. You know, they want their comforts, they want things how they want them, but they're only subject to change if they initiate the change or if they want the change. Being a fire sign just means that you're very passionate, very creative, very upbeat, very outgoing, sometimes extroverted. Really, it just depends on your other placements. But basically, the sign of Leo is just a very strong sign. You know, the animal that represents Leo in the zodiac is the lion, and for a very good reason. Leo risings are known for their mane of hair. You know, they're very recognizable by their hair, which stands out amongst others. Leo is also a sign associated with beauty, so most Leo risings tend to be pretty attractive. And I've noticed that many Leo risings tend to have hourglass shaped bodies, and they're usually conventionally attractive. Like if you hold up a picture of a Leo rising to like the average person, they'll usually say that person is attractive. Leo risings are usually very bubbly, and whenever they walk into a room, you will know. You know, Leo risings like to dress in a very outgoing way. They like to dress in a way that's going to express themselves and almost just make them stand out. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say that Leo risings don't like attention, because that stereotype is true. You know, Leo individuals enjoy some sort of attention. Now, depending on what your sun sign is and the house that your sun sign is in is going to tell you a lot more about what type of attention you like and, you know, where you get that attention, because the sun is the ruler of Leo. So this means that the sun is your chart ruler. The chart ruler is the most important placement in your birth chart because it all leads back to you, you know, your self-identity. And it just so happens that the house that you have Leo in is the area of life that you shine the most. And having it in your first house of self is that you're just a very radiant person, very bubbly. Like you just have this magnetism that just pulls people in and they just want to pay attention. Leo risings more often than not resonate with their sun sign a lot because it is their chart ruler. Now, directly opposite from the first house of self is the seventh house of the other. In traditional astrology, it rules over marriage, but it can also rule over partnerships and just other people in your life, you know, your one-on-one relationships. Now, Leo risings have Aquarius in the seventh house. So the seventh house, in simple terms, can represent your type, and Leo risings kind of attract Aquarius-like people. Aquarius energy is very smart, very innovative, very random, you know, people who aren't afraid to express themselves the same way that Leos are. Leo and Aquarius are sister signs, basically meaning that they're similar. They have very similar cores, very similar foundations, but they express themselves in different ways. See, Leo is more about expressing themselves just for the sake of creativity, you know, it's who I am. Aquarius energy is more interested in expressing itself because it wants to be different from other people. Aquarius is ruled by both Saturn and Uranus. So Saturn is a very serious sign. In astrology, we usually refer to it as a malefic. Malefics kind of bring trouble wherever they go, and Saturn is the planet of hard lessons and time. And this is why Leo risings throughout their life can find themselves just going through uphill battles regarding their relationships because it is a Saturn-ruled sign. Whenever your seventh house is ruled by Saturn, it means that it's going to take a while to build up to that stable point where you have a good, healthy relationship. Aquarius is also ruled by Uranus, which is the planet of very random, shocking things. Uranus is not a fan of authority, and having it ruling over your seventh house just means that very quick makeups, breakups, you know, very quick relationship changes tend to happen to Leo rising. So if you're a Leo rising and your type isn't attractive, almost kind of nerdy, like weird in a way, if that isn't your type, then that just might be how you act in relationships, because the seventh house contains your descendant. So the ascendant, aka rising rising sign is in your first house, and directly opposite of that is your descendant, which is in your 7th house. Now, the descendant kind of rules over the partners that you attract to you and just the way that you are within your relationships. So you might find yourself tapping into your Uranus energy, being very spontaneous in your relationships. Leo risings also have a Virgo 2nd house. So the 2nd house is all about money mainly, and it's all about, you know, your relationship to food, how you handle money, and also your morals and your self-worth. So having Virgo in the 2nd house, it kind of brings a little bit of anxious energy to your finances. Virgo is a sign associated with perfection, and Virgo energy is always trying to improve things. It's very meticulous, and it's very interested in the details of things. So Leo risings might find themselves being very good at like budgeting and very good at saving and just knowing how to handle your money. And your 2nd house ruler is Mercury, meaning the way that you generate income in your life is very crafty. You might even have to learn a new skill in order to generate income. And you might even find yourself learning a lot about money and just being very educated on money in general. And since there's immutable energy within your 2nd house, it's almost like you're very adaptable to whatever financial changes come your way. Now, directly opposite the 2nd house is the 8th house. The 8th house is a hidden area of your birth chart. It's all about your sexual relationships. It's all about money as well. It's about spirituality. It's about secrets. It's about sudden gains, sudden losses, and even divorce to an extent. Having Pisces in the 8th house kind of makes Leo rising sexual experiences very heartfelt, very deep, very nebulous in a way. This is because your 8th house is ruled by both Jupiter and Neptune. So Jupiter is a planet of abundance in astrology. It brings you good luck, it brings you good fortune, it wants to spoil you. You know, it generally has just a very like positive outlook on life. Neptune is another planet that rules over this house though. And Neptune is a planet of confusion, delusion, addiction, but also creativity. So Leo risings might find themselves being very good at manifesting their dreams whenever they invoke their sexual energy, their creative energy, whichever way you choose to do that. Neptune energy also represents addiction to an extent. So Leo risings might find themselves having some sort of addiction to, you know, sexual tendencies or even gambling or just spending a lot of money in one place. And the way that the 8th house deals with money is it's kind of like the 2nd house is more like your bank account, right? If the 2nd house is kind of like your bank account, then the 8th house is kind of like your bank deposits. It's kind of like the money coming and going. Like, you know, your 8th house is being activated when you're shopping, just when you're spending money in general. Also, the 8th house can represent things that you're very uncomfortable with. So Leo risings might find themselves getting really uncomfortable with Pisces energy, tapping into that hidden area of your life, that very spiritual, very sexual side of your life. It might be very uncomfortable for you. So Leo risings might find themselves disliking Pisces energy for that very reason. Now, Leo risings also have Libra in the 3rd house. So the 3rd house is all about traveling, communication, your siblings, your neighbors, just people that you see on a day-to-day basis, and even your friends. Now, having Libra in the 3rd house just means that Leo risings can be a chatterbox. Libra is the sign of relationships. For the sake of this video, when I mention the 3rd house, I'm mostly going to be talking about the way that Leo risings communicate. Libra is a sign that's very good with its words because it is a sign of partnerships. Libra energy is obviously very talkative, it's very fun, it's very interested in putting on a show for people. Libra risings might have a sibling who has the Libra placement because the 3rd house also does rule over siblings. And because Libra is ruled by Venus, the planet of love and beauty, people that you talk to might think that you're very beautiful, just that you have a very good way with your words. Also, because you have Venus ruling over your 3rd house, you have a tendency to want to create harmony within the communication that you have. And the bad thing about Libra is that Libra energy will sometimes just go with the flow of what other people are saying for the sake of keeping the peace, and sometimes even holding back their own opinions just so everyone else around them can be comfortable. Also, I do have to warn you with having Libra in your 3rd house not to gossip too much about other people. Now, directly opposite the 3rd house is the 9th house. So the 9th house is also referred to as the house of God. It is kind of the house that represents your philosophy on life. Like, what do you believe in? Do you believe there's a God? Do you not believe there's a God? What do you believe happened at the very beginning of life? That's like 9th house energy. It's also spirituality. It deals with higher learning, academia, you know, just becoming aligned. That's your 9th house energy. And Leo risings have Aries in the 9th house. So Aries energy is very passionate. It's very independent. It's very straightforward. You know, I'm gonna dive right in. Also even impulsive to an extent. So So Leo risings might find themselves going on these very like random vacations because the ninth house also rules over long-term travel. So like going on a very like far out vacation, that's kind of like ninth house energy. So Leo risings might find themselves just randomly going on vacation sometimes. And whenever they're learning something, like particularly in college or picking up a new skill, they might just tap into their Aries energy, their Aries aggression. And you know, whenever they're talking about their beliefs, they might be very aggressive about those beliefs or just very persistent in getting the other person to hear what they have to say. Especially if this is a situation in which a Leo rising is teaching someone else a skill or teaching someone else something. They get straight to the point and they're very blunt about, you know, what other people need to hear about this subject. Also, the house that you have Aries in your birth chart is kind of where you find your own independence. And having Aries in the ninth house just means that Leo risings need to cultivate their own set of beliefs, you know, their own belief system, their own spirituality, you know, make their own choices about college. It's very important that Leo risings do this on their own because otherwise they'll feel really smothered. Now, also we have Mars ruling over the ninth house. Mars is one of the malefics in astrology and it kind of brings a little bit of trouble wherever it goes. Having a ninth house that's ruled by Mars means that Leo risings might have had trouble with their philosophy of life or maybe even trouble during college or just trouble possibly even on social media because the ninth house also represents social media to an extent. Leo risings just might find themselves arguing about their beliefs with other people because of this. Now, the good side of having Mars ruling over the ninth house is just that you're very activated, you're very independent, you're very action-based whenever it comes to this house. So you're very, you know, interested in getting out there, learning more about other cultures, interested in getting out there, learning more skills, you know, out there taking more vacations. Now, Leo risings also have Scorpio in the fourth house. So the fourth house represents the home, the family, the private life, and it's not hidden like the eighth houses and the 12th houses are in your birth chart, but it's at the very bottom of your birth chart. So although it's not hidden, it is very private. And the least amount of people in your life see this side of you. So Leo risings having Scorpio energy in their fourth house just means that their connections with their family cut very deep to their heart. Scorpio is a planet associated with your personal power. And Leo risings having Scorpio in the fourth house might mean that they have a parent or a family member who has Scorpio placements, but also that there might have been a lot of power dynamics in the childhood or just in the home area of power, control, manipulation might have been common themes for you in your childhood or just something that you're very familiar with. And if not that, then you might be the type of person who kind of asserts their power and stands in their power whenever you're around your family. Mars also rules over Scorpio and basically it's ruling over your fourth house of home and family and private life. So this also can speak to you having a lot of quarrels with your family members, just issues with your family members as well. Also because you have Pluto also ruling over this house. Pluto is the planet of death, transformation, rebirth. So Leo risings might have been forced to kind of step into their power, step into their strength as a child in order to kind of get through their childhood. Also, the house that you have Scorpio in brings a regenerative property to that area of your life. In the life of a Leo rising, they might find themselves transforming their home life, their house, you know, consistently renovating their houses, you know, changing up what the inside of their houses look like, and also going through huge changes, huge shifts in the environment of their home. So directly opposite the fourth house at the very bottom of the chart is the 10th house at the very top of the chart. So the 10th house rules over public image, reputation, your career, you know, how other people see you, your successes, your fame, your honor. You know, your 10th house is being activated when you post on social media, when you go to a party, you know, when you're working toward your dream job. You know, the 10th house kind of rules over where you're going in this lifetime. And Leo risings have Taurus in the 10th house. So Taurus energy is very slow and steady. Taurus in astrology is also the sign ruling over money. So Leo risings might find themselves having very lucrative careers, very long-lasting careers, because Taurus energy, although it can come off as a bit lazy sometimes, Taurus energy knows when to relax and it knows when to work really hard. So Leo risings work very hard at their career, but they also know that good things take time. Having Taurus in the 10th house might make you appear very bougie to other people, or other people might see you as someone who has quite a bit of money, even even if you don't, because that's just the energy that you naturally embody. Very bougie, you know, very luxurious, and about your business, very chill, very sweet, very down to earth is another way that people may see you as well. Venus is also ruling over your 10th house, Venus being the planet of love and beauty. So Leo risings might find themselves having a career like within the beauty world, or their personal beauty might be very important in, you know, projecting your career forward. So there are a lot of different ways we can look at Venus ruling over your 10th house. So you definitely want to go into your own birth chart, check out what Venus is doing, check out the aspects that it's making to other planets. Leo risings also have Sagittarius in the 5th house. So the 5th house is all about fun. It's all about romance. It's all about lighthearted sexual encounters. It's about your relationship to your children and also your creative project. So having Sagittarius in the 5th house just means that the types of things that Leo risings find fun have Sagittarius energy to them. Sagittarius energy very much deals with learning. It deals with expanding the mind, expanding the soul. Sagittarius is a mutable fire sign. So Leo rising is very passionate about their creativity, their art, you know, whether you create art, whether you create music, whatever that is. And they're also very adaptable, meaning it's going to be very easy for you guys to learn skills. That's because the sign of Sagittarius does rule over learning to a certain extent. Your 5th house is ruled by Jupiter, the planet of abundance, good luck, you know, optimism, all of those good things. But I do have to tell you that if you're born in Gen Z, then you most likely have both Pluto and Chiron here. It kind of just means that this area of life is very triggering for you. Someone may have tried to assert their dominance over you romantically or even over your creative projects. You might kind of feel like other people are trying to police your fun, control the amount of fun you have, or the way that you express yourself as well. Chiron rules over wounds and also healing. Leo risings might find themselves having very triggering experiences within their relationships, whether that be sexual, whether that be romantic, or even hurtful experiences in the way that they express themselves. Like they might have gotten made fun of for the way that they express themselves, or made fun of for the things that they like. But the thing is that the same thing that hurts you is also the same thing that will heal you. So tapping into your 5th house energy is really going to help you overcome your triggers, you know, getting to the bottom of what really causes this unrest within you as a Leo rising. So, you know, tapping into your creativity, spending more time with your children, getting out and going back on dates again, you know, having that lighthearted, fun, fling energy type of sex. That is the same thing that is going to repair whatever was broken in this area of your life. And also because you have Jupiter ruling over this house, no matter how triggering this area of your life gets, you're always going to be a bit optimistic when it comes to this area of your life anyway, no matter the trials and tribulations that you've gone through. So directly opposite the 5th house is the 11th house. The 11th house rules over your long-term friends. It rules over, you know, people who think very similarly to you, like people that you are in a similar community to. So for example, if you belong to a certain church, you know, that would count as a community. If you belong to the One Direction fandom, or, you know, any sort of fandom, just like people who think very similarly to you, that's all represented by the 11th house. Leo risings feel very at home with Gemini energy. So even if Leo risings haven't known someone with Gemini placements very long, it still feels like you're coming home to this person, like right at home within your energy, because Leo risings search for Gemini energy within their friendship. People who are very adaptable, people who have lots of interests, you know, people who can keep up a very intellectual conversation. You never know what you're going to get with a Gemini, and Leo risings love that type of energy. Now, your 11th house is ruled by Mercury. So the types of friends that you tend to attract tend to be very smart, tend to be people who are very well-spoken, and generally very well-rounded types of people. Also, with having Gemini in the 11th house means that Leo risings can kind of embody that Gemini energy within their friendships. So like if you're not attracting a Gemini to you, then you're kind of going to embody Gemini energy around your other friends. And being able to switch up the vibe and kind of like match the vibe of what everyone else in the room is feeling. Leo risings also have Capricorn in the 6th house. So Capricorn is a very strict sign. It's very serious, and it's ruled by Saturn. And Saturn is the planet of time, of hard lessons. And so whatever house you have Capricorn in is kind of like where you're consistently working your way to the top. And having Capricorn in the 6th house of daily routines, your health, your pets, places that you go every single day. Leo risings are very meticulous about the way that they like to spend their time. The 6th house also represents your job, so Leo risings more often than not are very hard workers in their job. Capricorn is a cardinal earth sign. So the earth signs deal with material things, less such as money, cars, clothes, things that you can have. And cardinal energy is very much like go get 'em type of energy. You know, it starts, it's like initiating energy. So Leo risings are not afraid to go out and get the grind and, you know, be on their boss type of energy. And with your 6th house being ruled by Saturn, you might learn quite a bit of life lesson from your jobs. And here's the thing, is that Capricorn energy is the authority. Capricorn energy is not a fan of other people telling them what to do. So Leo risings might tend to have issues with their bosses because of this, and be pretty inspired to, start their own business, because you do have Taurus in the 10th house, and Taurus energy is very lucrative, and having it in the 10th house, which also does rule over business, I kind of see a lot of Leo risings kind of leaning on the being their own boss type of thing. Now, directly opposite the 6th house is the 12th house. So the 12th house is one of the hidden houses in your birth chart. It rules over mental health, it rules over isolation, also spirituality to an extent. It's all about your subconscious, like what's beneath the surface under there. Leo risings have Cancer in the 12th house. So Cancer is a sign that is ruled by the moon. So your moon sign is going to have a huge impact over your subconscious. So for example, if you're a Leo rising who has a Sagittarius moon, it is going to be very different energy than if you're a Leo rising with a Pisces moon. And because the moon is ruling over your 12th house, the nature of your subconscious is going to change very often. The moon only stays in a certain sign for 2 or 3 days at max. So your subconscious is always changing. Cancer energy also rules over the family. So there might be very subconscious things or kind of like secrets that you don't really know about your family as well. The 12th house also rules over hidden enemies. So Cancer placements are more likely to be secretly vindictive towards you or secretly hateful towards you. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, every single Cancer placement is going to do this to you, but I do think that Leo rising should be very careful of the Cancer energy within their life. However, there is a very positive side of someone having a placement in your 12th house. People who have Cancer placements are going to see things about your subconscious and your subconscious habits that you don't even see yourself, which is why 12th house synastry is so powerful. Because if that person has good intentions for you, it can be very good, it can be very therapeutic, it can be very healing for you. But if that person is malicious towards you, they can almost use your subconscious against you. But that is the reading for my beautiful Leo risings. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And if you wanted to get a personal reading, you can get one on my website, destinyjanae.com, which is linked in the down below.